Good evening. I'd like to call the Board of Adjustment meeting for May 15th to order. And our first order of business, I'd like to introduce our board to you.
Ryan Baker.
Donna Cook.
Anil Vera.
Kathy Slagle.
Frank Lamia.
Thank you. So, we have an approval of the minutes. So we have a motion to approve the minutes.
I make a motion to approve.
I second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Okay. Our first order of business is BOA 23.04, and we'll have staff update us on this, please.
Thank you. Okay, this is a request for a front setback variance. And it's on a vacant lot on Satsuma Street. So the applicant is requesting a front setback variance to a vacant lot. It's between Orange Avenue and Cricket Lane. It's located within R2. It requires a 35-foot front and rear setback currently, and 10-foot side setbacks and 20-foot street side setbacks. R2 lots are required to be at least 10,500 square feet with a minimum width of 75. This one is below at 80 by 100. So the lot itself is legal and non-conforming since it's shy of the 10,500 square foot requirement for R2. So when it was platted and recorded for the Huggins division in 1960, the applicable front and rear setbacks were 45 feet actually, and it was plotted as the 80 by 100. So this is a specific request for a 10-foot front setback variance that resulted in a 25 front setback as opposed to the required 35. So that's what it looks like. It's vacant. And this is the actual Huggins Division plat from 1960. And those lots haven't changed. It's these 1, 2, 3 facing Satsuma. This would be in the middle one. And this is a snippet of a survey that the applicant provided, because it's not really a whole survey, that has the 462 Satsuma lot and the house built on it with highlighted setbacks that do vary from what is currently required. But like I said, this is a snippet of a survey. This is all we got. We didn't get the whole plat with all the signatures and whatnot. So there's just the dimensions for R2. So the applicant, which is here, so I'm sure they'll speak to you, said the intent behind the variances request is to construct a house that is actually 40 feet deep because the current applicable setbacks would limit it to only a 30-foot deep structure. And so what they've got in the middle is what they would like to build. However, when these lots were platted and recorded in 1960, the applicable front and rear setbacks were 45 feet. So it was much smaller. And we've got some dimensions of that in a minute. In 2004, there was an administrative appeal. I think some of you guys might have been here. It's on the board. For 2 lots, lots 1 and 2, to be recognized as legal lots of record on behalf of the landowner of lot 1, which is 462 Satsuma. And the 2 lots were recognized as legal lots of record per that request, because they were questioning the dimensions and stuff to see if they were accurate, and it turned out that they determined they were legal lots of record. So there is not a variance that I could find for 462 Satsuma, that lot 1. If it is indeed those dimensions, there's not a variance in our records for it. So the subject property is lot 2 is legal non-conforming, and because it's the smaller at 8,000 as opposed to 10,500. However, the zoning ordinance does contemplate front setback relief for non-conforming lots, and staff, not myself, but has discussed administrative variance 5 foot for the front setback pursuant to the zoning ordinance with the applicant. So that would have the front setback at 30 feet. So the administrative variance is calculated from the average of adjacent property frontages. As such, the applicant is currently requesting a 5-foot front setback variance to have a 25-foot setback, as opposed to the required 35, which would be 20 less than the original platted 45. And that is the section of the zoning ordinance that we try to make up for that, because there are a lot of legal non-conforming lots in Fairhope. So, but then the highlighted part is, in no case shall the front building line be more than 5 feet less than the minimum setback required for the district, which is 35 today.
And just a quick note on that, that was a amendment that the Planning Commission and City Council most recently made. So there was no limit on that administrative variance, but two things kind of went into play there while that was capped.
Thank you. And so this is a visual of what the different dimensions look like. So the first one in this candy apple green is when the principal building area, when the lot was created. That's what it would look like with those 45-foot setbacks. However, I mean, that was what was contemplated at that time. And then the existing building, this is this teal color with these expanded zoning amendments is what that would look like. And you can see there's the 45 and 45. Yeah, and then this would go to the 35, yeah. You've got the 45 dimensions of still going in as a reference, because that was the original intent. And so then with the 30-foot front setback, which we can do administratively, that's going to be the blue one. And then the purple is what is requested by the applicant, which is the 40-foot deep structure. So. Okay, and going through the criteria for a variance, I'll just rifle through them. This property does not present any exceptional conditions because of its size, shape, or topography. That's what we have to look at first and foremost. There are plenty of substandard R2 lots in the city itself and a lot in the fruit and nut section, which is where this property is located. There's been some front-back setback relief already provided to the substandard lot through the administrative variance process, which we can do. The shape of the lot is more or less rectangular. It's relatively flat, and there have not been any Board of Adjustment requests of record pertaining to a variance due to the topography of any of the surrounding lots in the city records. So it does not create a necessary hardship on anyone. If it is denied, just get the 5-foot administrative one, and there are no conditions that are peculiar to the subject property because the buildable area is actually, as we just saw, a lot larger today due to lesser setbacks than what were in place when it was plotted in 1960. So, and there will be no substantial detriment to the public good nor impairment of the intent of the ordinance if this variance is denied. So in that vein, we're recommending denial of the 10-foot front setback variance. However, the administrative 5-foot front setback variance is something that we would entertain for you guys to entertain.
And to clarify that, we have not given that administrative variance yet, but we did review, and I would likely, as the planning director, give that 5-foot variance that would result in a 30-foot setback, front setback.
Y'all kept bringing up a 45-foot platted is how you described it, setback?
So this one had some real interesting conversations when it was originally platted. It did go through the planning commission. Minutes are available. And this goes into a lot of our analysis on, it was created, each 3-lot was created, and at the time, the zoning ordinance was a 45-foot in rear setback. What the intent of using these were at the time, we cannot.
It could be the
begin to
mysterious
tell.
garden lots.
Right. But I don't know if somebody thought a mobile home there, the 50s mobile homes were 10 foot wide and less. But I do not know, but it's sat empty for 60-something years.
So the platted is not something that stays with the lot. That's what I was going to ask.
It was, there are times when that happens if it's platted. It was not on the plat as a setback that says it will go. So when that doesn't happen, it evolves with
Okay.
whatever the zoning is.
Right.
I don't believe we had, I don't know if we had even R2. There was a
Right.
there was early.
And I don't think that the 10,500 was in place
It was
because
not.
this is 8,000, and the one that 462 set assume has the same dimensions as well. That's
Yeah.
got the house on it.
I think actually this era, if I'm not mistaken, was when they started with lot size minimums instead of just the width dimension. Because I believe we adopted our first land use code in '54.
Something like that, yeah.
That even the definitions of R1, R2, things like that has kind of evolved as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you. The applicant, if the applicant is around, who would like to speak for or against or explain the request to us. If you'll state your name for the record, please. If you'll come up to the microphone.
Hello, I'm Sunny Booth. This is my husband, Jim. We've been in Fairhope a very long time. In fact, my husband is a native of Fairhope, as well as his parents and grandparents and great-grandparents. So our grandchildren are fifth-generation Fairhopians. He grew up on Orange Street, which connects, as you notice, at Suma, but it was a dirt road back then. We're asking for this variance for a couple of reasons. Number one, if you look at the house next door, and I don't know when it was built, but it doesn't appear to line up with either of the side property lines or the front and back. It's kind of cattywampus sitting on the lot. But it is actually 24.7 feet from the property line to that front corner. We feel like it would look best if our house lined up pretty much with that. So, as you know, aesthetically speaking, when you drive by, a neighborhood, you sort of expect most of the houses to be pretty much in order. A foot or so doesn't make a lot of difference. They're at 24/7. If we were at 25, no one would ever notice, a 5-inch difference. Another reason is that my husband has some issues that keep him from being able to climb stairs and such. If we got the setback, we could have the master bedroom on the ground floor, whereas if not, we'd have to have the master up. And he has one knee replacement. He's facing another. He's having one shoulder replaced next month, and then this next one follows. And, I have one hip replacement and 4 screws in my back. But at any rate, I realize nobody cares about that. But it would be helpful to us if we could have the master bedroom on the ground floor. I know that some people have written and have submitted notifications to you that they're opposed to us doing this. I did read all of those online, and it's a little bit confusing, and I understand the confusion because it was confusing for us even when we decided to buy the lot. And we went out with a tape measure ourselves and tried to determine where would our house be, how would this work. And we just assumed, naturally, and we shouldn't have, that we would be wherever the next door neighbor is, because that makes sense. And then we actually took a tape measure out and tried to figure that out, and it still didn't make sense to us. And it wasn't until we got the survey showing their house and our lot that we were able to determine, wait, how can this be? How can these rules apply to one lot and then something else apply to us? So there again, we're here. We have some people who in the neighborhood who are great. They want us to be there. They want us, to get the setback and be able to put our house where we think it should be. And I noticed that there are a few people who don't. But I read Mr. Dennis Jacobson's email, and he objected because he feels like we should have consistency in the neighborhood, aesthetically speaking. And also Mr. Andy Parwin felt the same. And Mr. Parwin said that he went out with a tape himself and measured, and that the house next door was in fact 35 feet, which we know now based on the survey that it isn't. It's 24/7. So ironically, if these two gentlemen get their wishes, our house would then be 10 feet behind the neighbor's house, and in reverse, they would be getting exactly what they're fighting against, which would be, that offset. So I would just like to ask you please to pass our variance request just based on these things. I feel like it would look better aesthetically to everyone, community-wide, and it would also be a relief to us to have the master bedroom downstairs. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to open the public portion. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak? If you'll come up and state your name and address for us.
Hey, I'm Carolyn Booth, B-O-O-T-H-E. And my cousins by marriage don't seem to know we live there. We live on 106 Orange Street. It's a nice street, but it's getting to be unnice in my book because they're building these huge, huge houses on little bitty lots. And I'm of the opinion that you stick to the rules or the regulations. Don't start varying this and varying that, because you get into trouble that way. And if you want to live that close to somebody, they got senior living things up here going up that they'd be glad to sell you, and you'll be right next door to somebody. So I know that there's a water problem there, because I knew Carol Gordon, who lived in the house beside this lot, and she had some terrible problem with it. She was renting the house at the time, but the city was down there. We've even had a fire right there just a couple of months back. Mr. Huggins is in the place up on Gayfer Avenue Extension, and I don't think he'll be back home, but his kids are around, and so I don't know what's going to happen with his house. I sure hope somebody doesn't take it down, because that's a beautiful home, and it's old. It's just like the house right across the road from him and right next door to him. And I live in an old house. Does anybody remember Jim Walter? That's who designed my house, and that's probably somebody nobody knows about. You got to be 75 at least to remember him. So these variances are just ridiculous, and I'm sorry that people get old and need a bedroom downstairs, but to me that's not a reason to give a variance. You just have to buy the right kind of lot. And
That's right.
if you want to live in the fruit and nut district, you should have done it a long time ago, because we're having a hard enough time as it is with these new designs. I call them double wides with shoeboxes on top. That's what they look. They don't look Fairhope, and particularly fruit and nut, like I remember. And I've got a stack of Clay City tile bricks out at the farm that I'll sell you, or I'll give them to you if you want to build a house out of those bricks, because that's what Fairhope is. And Tom Jones knows that, because he still uses them, and he still uses the clay out of the ground. So I thank you. I hope y'all think about it real careful, because it's not helping Fairhope to zone.
Kathy has a question for you.
Are you on the corner of Orange and Satsuma?
No, ma'am, I'm 106. There's the new structure that's yellow that was a shotgun house forever on the corner of Orange and Satsuma. On the west, hold on, so you'll
Okay.
know. Do you know north, south, east, west?
I
there?
do.
Okay. I'm a
right.
sailor, so that means a lot to me. We're on the south east corner.
Okay. got
But
it.
I'm not on the corner. I'm 2 doors down. I'm between the $2 million jobbies, million plus. I'm in the $4,000 neighborhood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is there anybody else from the public that would like to speak for or against the request? If you'll state your name and address for us.
Good afternoon, I'm Andy Parvin. I live at 104 Pecan. I'm the guy with the tape measure. My wife and I live at 104 Pecan, which is around the corner from the petitioner's lot on Satsuma. My wife and I moved here a little over 3 years ago. We decided to build a new home in Fairhope. So unlike everyone else here, we're newcomers. We came from Elmore County. We were very surprised how expensive real estate is in Fairhope. You all knew that, we didn't know it.
Got no clue.
But we did some research, and we found out that Fairhope has enacted very specific code with regard to building a new home and how that home, whether it's new or existing, can be situated on its lot with regard to setbacks and set-asides. So armed with that information, we decided to go ahead with our project, spend a lot more money than we thought we would, but we felt comfortable because of the code Fairhope has enacted. If now you're going to start relaxing that code, then potentially everyone else in the neighborhood could be impacted negatively on the largest investment most of us ever make, our home. When this lot was acquired by the petitioners, the dimensions were well known. It's 8,000 square foot lot, same as ours right around the corner. Similarly, the code that Fairhope enacted is public information. It's been on the books for years. It's there for all to see. We found it. We're newcomers. All it took was a little initiative and a little energy. Please don't relax the code and reward these petitioners because they might not have done their homework up front. Because when you do that, you're penalizing the rest of us that did do our homework. Regarding the measurements, I'm a simple guy. I looked at that house at 462. It didn't look like it was only 24.7 feet from the street. It looked further. I took out my trusty tape measure, and maybe I did this all wrong. Maybe there's buffers that I'm unaware of. Maybe there's some other hidden calculation that goes into depth. But I stood on the corner closest to their lot. I went to where the street meets the grass. I took my tape measure back, and lo and behold, when you get to the corner of the house, it was 35 feet. We have rules for a reason. Variances should be granted only in times of pure economic or financial hardship. That's not the case here. Please follow the recommendation that the Zoning and Adjustment Board made to deny this request. Please make a decision that benefits the neighborhood in general instead of one potential new resident. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Ron Mitchell, and I live at the corner of Orange and Satsuma that you're speaking. I'm sorry, ma'am, could you switch the map back that shows the homes a little bit? Because if I touch it,
Oh, that's okay.
won't be able to use it again.
What you want? You want to hit this
The one before that has the
This one?
house, no, had the house.
There you
we
go. Okay.
I can see that one better than does the city agree that the 24.7 feet is the setback on the house next to the corner or not? Or is that?
We cannot confirm that. We do not have a full survey. I don't doubt it. Okay? I don't doubt it, but there is no survey of record that we can see. We just have a little snippet of it.
Okay. I'm going by, the reason I'm saying I'm going by the assumption right now that it is approximately the 25 feet, the home. I'm at the corner right there. The first house that you're going to see that's Orange and Satsuma. The other house on the other side is the one they're referring to, that's the white one that has the 25-foot setback on the corner. And the way I look at variances, and I know, hey, you know, I had someone say, well, you don't want to do, I said, that's why they have a variance committee, is they look at each individual property, each individual situation that comes up. It's not a blanket deal that they just grant, don't grant, et cetera. But in my view of living at the house next door, if they have the lot, if they have the house 25 feet back and it matches the other one next door of the front of it that's 24/7 or approximately 25 feet back, that is going to look more uniform aesthetically of driving down the street and seeing those, that nothing looks out of the norm, as opposed to when I look out of my backyard, I'm either going to see more of the garage or I'm going to see more of the side of the fence. To me, it doesn't make, it's not going to affect me from that standpoint one way or the other. Dennis, who's not here tonight, he was another one. He got confused on part of that, and I said, where he had sent it a negative. Dennis, I said, Dennis, what? He says, well, it sets a precedent that everything then is 25 feet back, and I said, no, it doesn't. That's why they have a variance board that each property, each thing they look at, they decide on. He said, if the house is going to be like the other one, 25 feet back and come across, straight across with it, he said, I don't have a problem with that then. He said, if it was like everything else has changed everywhere, he said, aesthetically, I think that would look better also. So The reason I have no objection is I think it would match up with the house next to it. The 25 feet would look proper, and that's my personal opinion. Thank you.
Okay, is there anybody from the public that would like to speak for or against? Okay, we'll close the public portion. We'll have the board members discuss.
I have a question about the drainage part that somebody brought up and I think it was in your report. Is the lot extremely low in the back? Like, is there a drainage issues in this lot? 'Cause I went out there, there's a giant pine tree that was cut down in the back of the lot, but is it,
There was in 2004, that's what they were talking about when they were trying to do the 2 lots of legal record for lots 1 and 2. There was mention of drainage problems. And then I believe the Huggins house is the big, long one, that they were at that meeting too back in the day, and they also said there were drainage problems.
is that gonna is the drainage issues preventing potential buildable area? Or is there anything that's associated with that?
So,
There could be.
again, when a
Not there
building
yet.
permits comes in, our building department will look at kind of best management practice of what's going on there. That was very much a consideration, however, when we capped these variances, administrative variances. So procedurally, and under very good goals, to line houses up along the streets, there was always an administrative variance. And there was really 3-pronged of why the change. You went and surveyed everyone within 200 feet, and you were, on average, they were under the setback. You could split the difference between your 2 neighbors. One thing that wasn't accommodated for in there was the Fruit and Nut is a very old area that doesn't have a lot of drainage infrastructure. So one of the things I think we did during that is, when homes are, oversized for the lot, you got more rooftops, you have more drainage problems. A lot of times they're also coming with driveways and other impervious surfaces. That infrastructure is not there in this area. I mean, we need to consider that. So that was one of the reasons. Then the procedure of getting a survey for 200, became a little bit of an issue. And then because a lot of these homes were built before we even had land use codes, there were some anomalies that we didn't want to match. I mean, we've got houses as close as 7 feet from the front property line. Nobody wants our streets to match up with that. So the cap there was why it was put in, and I think you can see even on the survey, it's not the whole front of this house is expanding the 24.7 line. I think the side closest to this house is closer to 30 feet. I think all of those conversations, at least when we made the amendment to cap it 5 feet away, was given due consideration. So in a variance, I'll tell you with staff's review, what are we left with? What is a lot left with? It's 2,100 square feet buildable area, 700 square feet accessory building structure is allowed. So, I think on a lot that everybody knew in 1960 was small and going to be smaller than the homes that were being built at the time, which were 1,200 square foot cottages. I think that's a reasonable expectation, but,
I guess I was asking that, is the topography of the lot something that we need to be considering?
it's a
as far
very
as-
flat lot, so I think it's just a low
Yeah,
area.
it's about just 1 foot difference, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not,
It didn't even show up on the topo.
right.
I mean, okay.
Next door, they have a pier going, a boardwalk. They had to put that in because it was so low that the water accumulates down in there. I watched it.
Are there any drainage easements on the back of that property?
Nope. These were 1960, didn't require them.
Okay.
Hunter, I've got a question. So, the house that they're talking to the right, they're saying 25.7. That's one corner of the house, but it's
Right.
not straight.
It is cattywampus.
It's
She
catty.
said she was right, yes.
Okay. All right, so it does. So
Can you pull
their
that up?
buildable area is 60 by 30, so that's a 1,800 square foot home. Is that correct?
And where I said 2,100 was assuming that the administrative variance we could give was granted, so that
Okay,
would add an
so-
extra 5
so
feet.
that would be
35
60 by
by-
30, which is 2,100 square feet.
Right.
And so we're looking at a difference of 300 square feet difference. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, the proposed setbacks on there, we have not looked at a house. We don't
Yeah.
look at a house plan
At
here.
this time.
This is a setback that goes with the land. They did, and I don't know if you can see it or noticed it in your packet, this setback on the north side, I believe, was 15 shown on one plan.
Yes.
Which, as some of you may know, is when you put a driveway into a backyard to access a accessory structure. At that point, you have to have 15-foot setback on one side. Again, that's that was the proposed right here where it does show 15. So, you know, it's to us, it's nothing personal about anything. We just evaluate a piece of property. When you have something this small, do you get everything another property has? I mean, is that where you want the 15-foot setback? It's kind of squeezing quite a bit on, and we also look at those variances. Are you offered the same thing as your neighbor? You know, is it unique to this piece of property? We don't take into account a 66-foot by, 150-foot lot that has a different set of scenarios. So, I think Michelle did a good job explaining all of those review criteria. And as you all know, it's very aesthetics. Even, and there's actually been a state law in the state of Alabama, not for a bedroom on the ground floor, but for someone to get a variance to put an ADA ramp in, has a Board of Adjustment gave that and were sued and lost. Under that criteria, that's not a hardship because with the land, there was nothing precluding building a functional house and putting that ramp in the setback. So that is, one of those.
To look at the size, shape, and topography first and foremost of the actual property, real property.
I've got a question for the owners of the property. So with a 2,100 square feet, you can't design a master bedroom downstairs in 2,100 square feet?
Should be able to. I'm just going off of what I've sketched on paper. I've not had anyone draw it for me yet because I don't want to hire someone to draw plans that may or may not be built. You get what I'm
Right.
saying? When I know what my footprint is,
Then you'll go.
we talk.
It'd be more than 21 if you give them the 5-foot administrative variance.
18 was with the 35.
Oh, all right, okay.
With the,
Roughly 2,100 is with the 5-foot, which
Okay.
the 30-foot variance, and then 2,400 is if it was.
Right.
2,100.
2,100
If you, with your administrative.
with what they're asking for, it would be about 2,400 square foot.
Okay.
Well, that's ground floor. That's not counting a
That's
second
just
floor.
footprint, yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, what we could give administratively could result in a 4,200 square foot home.
Right.
We need to, procedurally, do we have to do anything with the 5-foot administrative? Okay.
Administrative variances, I mean, I think, they have the opportunity to ask for it. If you grant it, it goes 25. If not, then you come back to us and we'll write the letter and give that
All right. So do we have a motion for or against this proposal?
Motion to deny.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, we'll take a roll call vote.
Aye.
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 Motion is denied. Okay.
We do.
So,
3 coming next month.
okay. Okay. Is there any old or new business besides our new meetings? Okay, we'll have a motion to adjourn.
Do we have a meeting
Next month, we have 3.
So moved.
I didn't
Okay.
hear that.
Thank y'all.
Okay.